All right. Welcome, everyone. We are live right now. And I want to welcome everybody, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you're watching us on any of this, please make sure you just drop it in the chat and let us know that you're here. This is not only for men and the women who love them and their daughters and all of them. All of you all can participate in this conversation, but I'm hoping that a lot of men will participate in this. And of course, there will be a recording of this, and so you guys can watch it over and over. Have fun, and I have five luminaries in the house. Thank you so much for all of you agreeing to come and join me in this workshop today. We do this every year. We should probably do it more than once a year so that men can get a conversation in. Well, thank you for this. And I'm going to have you just introduce yourself briefly. I have Dr. Calvin Bonds in the house. I have Mr. Jide Craig. I have Mr. Toulouche in the house, Mr. Ayogusulu in the house, and Mr. Toko in the house. So just please go in that order. Introduce yourself briefly so that people can know who you are and why should they listen to you. Go ahead. Let's start with.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Calvin Bonds, and I'm a global servant leader with over 2 decades of industry experience in organizational development, in education, in business, and entertainment, and which I serve as in Hollywood as a publicist. So I work in many different fields. And to your second question, why should you listen to me? Because I believe that we all, in some shape, form, or fashion, have maybe either experienced trauma or need to work on something and continually working on our mental health. It is a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. I call him my Hollywood doc. His films won so many awards. I kept saying, we won this and we won that. And I was like, okay, bring it home. Thank you so much for what you do. I appreciate it. You joining us today. Sajida Craig, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, or good day, everybody. My name is Jide Craig. I'm an architect and a design consultant, health and safety executive, and so on and so forth. Why would you listen to me? Well, I'm passionate about the bass guitar and music and jazz music and all that. And I have quite a few years under my belt in architecture and design. Why should you listen to me? Because first of all, I'm a man in the 21st century. And yes, I have a bit of trauma. You know, I was an only child. I am an only boy, only male in my family. Grew up amongst women and had the first so definitely I'm a man, twice married, so I have a bit of trauma that I have to deal with, and yes, I have a few things to share as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being very clear about your journey. That's one of the reasons that I appreciate that you're here, that you have no problems looking at the things that you've gone through and being able to articulate it, and also being able to share with others so that they can learn from it. So thank you and welcome. Mr. Toulouche in the house, go ahead.
Good evening from Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Toulouche Do Francis. Based here in Nigeria. Why should you listen to me? Well, we're all men here except for Professor Merino. But I always believe that there is something to learn from everyone. I'm a person with lived experience, and I'm also a therapist and educator as well. So it's good to be here, and it's good to see men who have gone ahead of me in terms of age and experience here tonight. Thanks for having me.
So what is that title that they call you? What is it again? Do you have a word on social media? What is it? The what?
The mentalist.
Oh, the mentalist. Yes. So he's called the mentalist, and that's how I actually came across him. And Toulouche has been, a partner of sorts with us at JARS, and thank you for always being there. He has a huge following, and he has a lot to say. He's very active in this field, and you're welcome, Mr. Ayo.
Hi, great. Hi, guys. So my name's Ayo. I'm a microbiologist, or well, I call myself a scientist actually, but I have worked for the number sounds scary, but in excess of 30 years in biotechnology. So that's what I do. I am very passionate about science. I get very cross when people are quite illiterate about science. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So that's me. Why should anyone listen to me? Well, I have a pretty stressful job. I mean, I was up this morning at 6 o'clock and I haven't stopped working until about 3, because I have batches to release, which need to go around the world. And I'm dealing with people on 3 continents at the same time. So I have a lot of stress. I describe myself as a non-stereotypical man. So I guess that's why you listen to me, because I cry. And I do things that I guess stereotypical men don't do. So I talk a lot. When I have issues, I don't keep it to myself. Maybe I talk too much. I have ways of managing stress. So I exercise because I'm supposed to do that. Yeah. So that's, I guess, why maybe you should listen to me.
Yes, and thank you for being here. And honestly, your job, you didn't say you're a scientist, but you're also vice president of some.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I work for a biotech from. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay. The titles are kind of scary. Yeah. So I am vice president for quality for an organization. I have responsibility for every single medicinal product that we inject into every single patient. The reality of my job is that if we give out medicine, any medicinal product that injures a person, I actually will go to jail. I get personal and professional liability for the job that I do. So effectively, I have to know everything that's going on. So yeah, sorry, I said I talk too much. I once, in a previous job, I met a lady who said to me, "Are you really the qualified person for this company?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Why are you smiling?" And I said, "Why should I not?" And she says, "Well, she just joined the company and she was told about my function and she couldn't wait to meet me. And then she saw this guy who's chatting away and laughing, and she's thinking, how can he laugh when he can go to prison?" But I told her I don't focus on that. But it is stressful because effectively you're signing on a sheet of paper, and you know, if something goes wrong, I take it personally and professionally.
Absolutely. I wanted to share that because that's important. Thank you for being here. And I'll try to call you Ayo. Tokwe, go ahead.
Oh, hello. My name is Tokwe Abulude. I wear many hats. I just wanted to say about Ayo, I really like non-stereotypical man, and he cries, and that's just amazing. But I digress. So I'm Tokwe Abulude. I wear a couple of hats. My background's architecture, like Mr. Craig, but I've since veered into event decorations. I teach as well, and I am a mental health advocate, trauma-informed counselor. And I think that about sort of wraps it up. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And we also call him the balloon guy because this wonderful architect has decorated entire nations, won different awards, and he still gets the time to be a therapist. So thank you and welcome to the show today. So we have.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We have the US in the house, we have the UK, we have Iceland, and we have Nigeria. Woo! We are all over today, all over the map. All right, welcome everyone. So the first thing I want to say is that I really want to define our terms so we know the borders that we have. All right. So when we're talking about mental health, we're not only talking about emotional and psychological wellness. We're talking about every areas of your life, so that you are financially able to take care of yourself, so that you're socially connected, so that you are protecting of your environment and the foods that you put in your mouth. All of those things are part of wellness. Yeah, you're spiritually connected. It's all part of wellness. There is no health without mental health. Everything is encompassing. And I believe that mental health is the wealth of nations and wealth of communities, because when you're not well in those areas, then you're just not living the life that you're supposed to live. Now, within that is the whole concept of traumas. And traumas are the things that happens to you in life that are that's come to impact the way that you show up in any area of your life. either in relationships, in your jobs, in your own self, and in your religion, everywhere. It impacts everything. So what I want to ask you to do as men who sometimes we don't hear men talk about it, about things in their lives and how it impacts them. How do you, this is my definition of mental health and trauma. When you hear that, what does that mean to you? How do you filter that for you? Let's start with that. And you don't all have to answer. Anybody who wants to answer first can go first, and then we'll take start asking the questions.
Sorry, Prof. I'm not sure I got your question clearly. Could you please
Okay,
come
so
again?
the question is, let me repeat it. I already said the definition of mental health and traumas. As you were listening to that, how did you filter that through your own experience? What does it mean to you? What is trauma to you? What is mental health to you? That's the question.
Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. Oh, sorry. Do you want to go?
Go on, please. Go on.
Okay. So, well, mental health is an integral component. I mean, you already said this. It's an integral component of our overall health, and it talks about we refer to the emotional and psychological and social well-being, and influences the way we think, the way we feel, the way we act, and how we handle stress, relate to others, etc., etc. So, I like to think about it as, taking care of the soul part of our entirety.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else wants to piggyback on that or give something different?
Yes. So for me, like I always say, mental health is your complete being. I mean, because we understand that there are 5 pillars around mental health: your physical well-being, cognitive well-being, your social well-being, your emotional well-being, and your psychological well-being. It then means that everything about you, for you to say that you are healthy, or for you to say that you are sound health-wise, these 5 things need to be checked. And so for me, I carry on like an emblem the fact that how I feel inside goes a long way to control how I feel externally. There's an adage in the Yoruba dialect that says that it is how you feel inside. It is what you feel inside that controls the external. It's the strength from inside that controls the external. Simply saying "Okunu la fi n gbeti," saying that how you feel.
Say that again. Say slowly.
Okun inu la fi n gbé títa.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if it just simply means that if you're not emotionally stable, if you're not psychologically stable, if you're not cognitively stable, it's going to affect your physical well-being. And that's why when we come to things like depression, we often say that at the depressive mode side, you don't want to get out of bed and suddenly you're tired. So for me, mental health is just what it is. That state of being fit, all round and being able to carry on your normal activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. I'm going to ask another one, and that is there's stigma around all of this, right? There's stigma around mental health, especially in cultures, which has to do not just with ethnicity and not just have to do with being Black or being African or African American. That's not just it. It also has to do with your religion. They're religious people who don't believe in mental health. They actually think that is of the devil. And so the stigma around this, the stigma around men, not being able to go to therapists, or they feel this whole ego stuff that goes on with it. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Bonds and Jide and Ayo on this one, if you want to step in and respond in kind.
Yes, thank you first of all for that amazing question. So for myself, I'm actually Nigerian. I'm half Nigerian. And I found out I was Nigerian at the age of about 12, 13-ish. And so I grew up from a single mother. Thankfully, I was able to find my Nigerian family, connect with my family, with my father, and do all of those things, and now travel to Nigeria on a regular basis. But in growing up, I noticed that there is, first of all, trauma came from that, from my experiences. But in growing up and observing what a lot of men define as masculinity and being a man, I found that a lot of them did not encourage people to express their emotions. They did not encourage people to cry. They did not encourage people to do those things, people being men, because it was seen as a bit effeminate, or that was for quote unquote the women. And a lot of times, I actually think a lot of these sentiments, and I can speak from my experience here in the U.S. A lot of these sentiments, you can't be emotional. You can't. It's almost like you can't be human. You almost have to be. You just have to be that robot, be what they need you to be. I think a lot of those evolved from slavery. A lot of that evolved from way back then, and what has happened, and a lot of these are sentiments of that. So being an organizational leadership, I'm a leadership trainer and a coach, and I remember distinctly coaching a lot of men, and they were talking about just we were talking about emotional intelligence and the importance of that, and a lot of men, and they were men of color. They were saying that here on the job, we're not allowed to. I mean, we're working. We don't, and we how we grew up, we weren't allowed to. I mean, to really show emotions, because we were seen as a sign of weakness. And on the job, we don't talk to people on the job. We hold everything in. We don't express ourselves because, again, we're men, and we're not taught to do that. But then the flip side of that, a lot of them were saying that they were in the midst of going through a divorce with their wives. They were actually, some admitted to being physically violent with their wives, and just not being a good person outside of work, because one way or another, you're going to express it. This trauma that's on the inside is going to come out in one way or another. And so, unfortunately, we're taught that we don't need to go get counseling. We don't need to see a therapist. We just need to live. And that's the wrong way to live. So I think that there's a stereotype for men that they have to be a certain way to be, quote unquote, to be a man. And I'm glad that we're here today, because I believe that if you are a man, and especially a man of color, in some shape, form, or fashion, you've experienced trauma, and we're working on our mental wellness. We have to work on that. So, thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Well said. I love that. Oh, I'm sure all the men in the house are like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah. All right. Jide Craig. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, what I have to say is that mental health has always sounded negative from the get-go. Like Dr. Carvin said, you don't go for counseling, you don't go for therapy. Therapy is seen to be associated with sickness, illness of some sort. And men usually are trained from when they're young not to show pain. You fall down, you're told to get up. All right, be a man. Even when we say we want to go into Christianity or religion, there's a scripture in I think it's in 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, "Watch ye, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, and be strong." So even the Bible seems to have that religious or that cultural undertone of telling men to be strong. You see all the strong religious figures in the scriptures, all the men, Elijah, the Ezekiel, they performed so many strong things, Samson and co, and they're all strong men, and they didn't give up and all that. There were almost no signs of weakness. And so even when it comes to religion, things that we're so passionate about in Nigeria and Africa, that also enforces this negativity or this stereotypical mindset that you're not allowed to be weak. You cannot be weak. I grew up amongst women, and I grew up amongst strong women. Interestingly, because I had 6 sisters, all of them were strong, medicine, doctors, architects, lawyers, and stuff. So they grew up. My mom was also a very strong character. Interestingly, it had a negative effect on me, because for me, it made me feel weak and cowardly. And I came from the back. I was the last born, so, and I was shielded and sheltered. So I didn't come out strong into the world. And I came out all nice and soft and flowery, and only to be introduced into a world where it was crazy. I saw people who were crazy, who so I was like, why? Everybody's supposed to be nice and flowery like me, and understanding, and you appreciate this and that. And the world was not like that. So in a way, even the world began to shape me into the kind of person that I became. Try to be strong. Let's try to be strong. Let's try to handle stuff properly. But at the end of the day, like you said, trauma builds up inside. And when trauma begins to build up inside, it becomes a bit of a challenge when it begins to manifest itself in places and ways that you may not understand. And it comes up, it just happens without you knowing it, without any expectation. And then we're left to deal with it. Fortunately, on my own end, I was able to get some sort of private counseling, let me put it like that, from Tokwe Abulude, who is here, who recognized what I was going through and said, Jide, I'll call you once a week and just talk. Just tell me what's going on. Just open your mouth and talk. And I wasn't used to talking. You are the man of the house. I have 3 boys, 3 men growing up, and I had to groom them, so I had to be tough. You have to be tough as a father. You're not raising girls, you're raising boys. So you have to teach them the toughness in the world. The world is tough. So there are so many things coming against us at the same time, right from childhood. And we're being trained that talking, sharing your feelings, and all those things, they're not things you should do openly. So therapy, anything to do with therapy or anything like that, was seen as negative. And I've had to grow out of that. I had to unlearn the things I'd learned and then begin to navigate the world differently.
Wow, how powerful is that? Thank you. I a lot of things you said, I was writing down some things like, look, let me just thank you for giving voice to that. All right, it's so much, it's pertinent. But I want to say something about those scriptures. You said something about scripture and the strong men and all. I think we just pick the ones that we want to pick. Right? Because when I look as a woman, when I look at the scriptures, I don't just see the strong men. I see men who are flawed. I see men who showed weakness. I see Elijah who's saying, "I'm just let me die." I see Abraham who had to tell his lie out of things. I see the struggle of, I see them struggling in their own. I don't see this machismo thing. I see all of it, but I think that we're presented with the pure,
exactly,
with a purist lens of scriptures. But when you look at it, it's not at all. It is filled with all the failures. It is filled with all their pains. It is filled with people who had remorse. It was filled with people who were imperfect. And if we take a look at it that way, I think it would free us, male or female, to be who we're supposed to be. I just wanted to just put that, just drop that in there before we go to Ayo.
Yeah, so I guess at the introduction, I introduced myself as a maybe non-stereotypical guy. And to an extent, that's just been the way that I have been. So I come from, I call it a family of accountants. It seems like it's a family profession. So my father, my mother, Ish, my brother, every uncle I met when I got to Nigeria was an accountant. So when I announced I was going into sciences, it was like, oh gosh, yeah, to be him. And I've always sort of been the different person. So I'm kind of used to it. And I remember one of actually my drivers for wanting to be successful was my father saying to me, oh, well, it's okay. We have to have someone at least in the family who's going to be wearing jeans and t-shirt and will come to us. At least he'll have people to go to borrow money from when he's poor. So I'm always used to being that different person. So, so for some reason, I have never shied away from talking. I mean, yes, I heard all the things about men shouldn't do this and men shouldn't do that, but that's never been my thing. I remember distinctly when the first time ever actually I went over for counseling because a neighbor of mine had died. He'd committed suicide, a guy, and I felt personally responsible because I used to I'd invited him once to play football or soccer for the American, and but he wasn't very good, and I didn't really want him. People were like, "Oh, why did you bring this guy? He's pretty useless." So that particular week, I kind of avoided him and went to play football. And then that was on a Wednesday, and the Friday he committed suicide. And I couldn't help but think that if I had, maybe taking him, maybe he would, it was just, I just felt so guilty. And I remember knocking on the door, walking in to see this counselor, and she said she saw my name on the list and she thought, okay, well, he's going to be black. I mean, you don't see Ayo because I think I'm coming in white. This was when I was in the UK. And she just said to me, she was just surprised that and she had asked somebody because she had seen the name and they said, oh, Ayo, that's probably going to be a female. So when she saw a guy and a black guy, she actually expressed to me how shocked she was because, and this was coming from a therapist, that she thinks in her 20 something odd years of practice, I'm probably only the second or third black person guy that she's spoken to, because she also knew that there is this thing about people not talking, and the rule at the time was that you had 10 sessions, but she said you just keep coming. I went for every session that she would offer. I think we ended up with 25 sessions or something like that and counting, and she just kept saying, don't worry, I'm just going to put you on. And it was, I think that was the bit that got to me, the fact that she said this, but I've never shied away from that. I mean, like Jide, I've also spoken to Tope, going through some personal traumatic experiences. And again, he offered kindly to talk to me, which I did. So it's the irony of it. And this is maybe just a side thing. I'm very close to my mom, or was, because she's now passed. And one day she said to me, just out of the blue, she said, God, I'm so glad that I wasn't a young girl around you when you were growing up. And I said, why? She said, I just love a man who cries. And I think we had something had happened and I'd cried. And she was like, I think she actually found it very, ironically, she found it strong that I was able to actually cry. She said she just doesn't see that. I mean, in my whole life with my dad, I saw him cry once. Not that I expect men to cry all the time, but he was just, like we've all been saying, being a man and being strong, and that was what he did. So it's not something that I've shied away from. I talk because I feel that it's necessary to do that. I'll give one more example before I go away. So I was going through a very traumatic period in my life at one point, and then I worked at the hospital pharmacy, and every morning I know about drugs. Every morning I'll go past, I worked with one of the largest hospitals in the UK at the time, and I worked in the pharmacy department, and I would have to walk through to go to my office. And I could, I get in very early, there'd be no one there. I knew what combination of drugs to take that I would just, pop and die easy. I used to actually even walk past Propofol. Those who know me know that I'm a huge fan of Michael Jackson. I think, I'll just go the way he went, here's Propofol. I used to literally walk past it. I could take it if I wanted. Not if I wanted, but it was there. And because of that, I remember I had a friend who I got hurt. I used to get her to call me every day between 7 and 7:30. I expressed to her, said, look, this is what I'm going through, because it was just traumatic for me. And she would call me and talk to me throughout, until people would come in, and then of course that would go away. And so for me, I have never shied away from that because of talking, because I think it's yeah. My counselor actually once said to me, you probably won't be here if you didn't talk the way that you did. So for me, it's not a thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for being
sorry,
open.
Can I cut in here? So people are sending me messages and asking for the social media handles where they can watch this live. Is that something you can tell us?
Oh, it's on at Akin Marino Facebook, or Dr. Akin Marino Facebook. It's on Dr. Akin Marino YouTube. Anything Dr. Akin Marino or Akin Marino, it's on all of them. Right. So we are live on, the other thing, let me check something. The other thing is when we do this, sometimes it's on it's on private, which I don't know why it does that. So let me see.
Is it on Instagram?
It should be on Instagram.
Okay,
what did I say? It's on Facebook and it's on private. Why? Okay, let's make that public. All the beautiful things you all are talking about. Okay, now that one is it should be public now. Sorry guys, we're trying to get this sorted. Or they can also join us. They can also join us here. Oh, somebody sent the link, the YouTube link. So let me share that with you all. With you, Jide Craig.
Okay.
Oh, look, Jide, I don't even have your. Wait, Jide, it looks like I don't have your.
I think Bingbe should have it.
Okay.
You
Oh,
could
I
just,
do. I do. I do.
just drop it,
I do. I
just
do. I
drop
do. I
it.
do. Okay, there you go. There you have it. All right. So now, thank you, Muiwa, for Ayo, for sharing that. And it is what you just shared at the end of it is what we call suicidal ideation.
Ideation.
All right. That is, and I tell people not to be too scared of this, because if you are morbidly depressed, if you have major depression, suicidal ideation, they're two peas in a pod, right? You're going to have, those thoughts are going to come. Now, when suicidal ideation leads to planning, like, okay, I can take those medicines, I can put this and this, that's the plan. You're having a plan in your head. That's when we really need to be concerned. And you said you had somebody actually call you within certain hours, which is a protective factor. It's a very protective factor. There's something to do. And look, I also believe that a lot of suicides could be prevented if they're in the midst of care and access to people who really understand, and someone who can really come in and say, this is the way you should do this, and this is how you process this, etc., etc. But in our culture, unfortunately, most men do not do that. Even some women don't. We just had somebody die, a famous person who died in Lagos, the Konga CEO who died. And people were saying things like, what else does he need? He's rich. He has a this. He has a children. He has a that. Why else? Why would he commit suicide? He has everything going for him. Suicide is not a rational decision. It might look like it. It is a survivor decision. A lot of the times is, I need to get rid of this pain.
Yeah.
Or these people will be better off without me. Those are the two overwhelming reasons why people do this. And so thank you for sharing that. I don't want to, let me go to this next question. Guys, you guys are, this is so good. All right. You said things like, be a man up, all of these things that we say. What role do phrases like that, man up, boys don't cry, play in perpetuating, stigma around men's emotional expressions? What role does that, and what do we need to do to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore? Now, before you answer that question, here's another thing. A lot of men say that they are being emasculated in the media, in this, and by women, by this, they're being emasculated. So if you have men who are thinking that they're being emasculated, now telling them to process their emotions and to cry and to talk, it might feel like they're feeding into that emasculation. So I want you to speak to this. Who wants to take this first? Do you want me to call names? Like,
okay, let me start by talking about just tapering from the end where you ended. If there are any men out there at the moment who might be who might be experiencing suicidal ideation, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to feel guilty about. Please reach out, talk to somebody. It's not uncommon, and I'm sure Dr. Mer experiences this as well in my sessions. And the first thing we would do as therapists is to conduct a risk assessment. The first one being to find out if the person has a plan. When you start getting to that place where you have a plan, and what we mean by that is that, are you thinking, okay, I'm going to go jump in front of a train, or I'm going to just take this, medicine, or I'm going to jump off the top of a roof? Then you have a plan, and we need to be concerned at that point. there are times within sessions when someone would say, "Oh, I just felt like killing myself," and we would stop the session at that point, and address that and go like, okay, so what do you mean? What does it feel like? Often you hear that, but it's not it hasn't got to that point of having a plan. And so we can still just help the person explore what's going on for them. And now to answer your question, which I've forgotten because I've been
No,
talking.
that's really appropriate. And can you also add to it that what they need to do if you're feeling that way? What should you do right now? So maybe there's a really important need for us to talk, because suicide is high amongst men.
Yes,
And
I mean I don't have this. I don't have the. Sorry, I don't have the statistics right now, but it is quite high. The statistics of men versus women, and this is probably due to, again, we're talking about stigma and how people feel. And, you hear people say things like, Dr. Marino was saying, it would be better if I wasn't here, So there's a lot of pressure on men, It's kind of exacerbated, especially in this era that we're in right now, because everyone and their dog has social media. And so, you can just get on there and bash, and you get a lot of that going on, and so it makes men feel like, they're not really worth much, and or anything for that matter. And so it just makes people feel like they don't have a choice, and that's that sort of puts pressure on someone who's probably already struggling with some form of other trauma. I mean, you don't know what people are going through, where they're coming from, so one of the things I say to people is just be kind. You just be kind, because sometimes someone attacks you and actually you're not sure what's going on for them, and a kind word could help put things into perspective for them. As far as strategies are concerned, I'd say reach out to somebody, reach out to professional bodies, someone who really understands what might be going on. From a cultural perspective, I can speak mostly for the African culture, and probably a little bit of Asian, because I've got a lot of sort of Asian friends. There is a thing within within both communities to be a certain way. There's honor, is a big thing, especially like in, say, the Asian community. With the African community, you hear things, oh, we don't wash our dirty linen in public, all those sort of things. And so it makes men, be insular. And so they don't then know where to turn when they face a difficulty or just, struggle with something that they could, easily, they could potentially get help if they spoke out. So let me just give someone else an opportunity to talk.
Can I ask a question before you go, Dr. Marino? Can I ask a question? This type of man that we're talking about, the man who can express himself freely, is there a place in today's world for such a man? And I'm saying this because in the back of, while we have to be strong and all that, we have also the feminine gender who have become really masculine as well. They're also becoming tough. You have what you call boss ladies and stuff like that. And you see in marriages, and this is also one of the factors that has caused a decline in marriages, where that issue of what you call submission, or that mindset of what submission is and understanding what it is can be a bit of a challenge. And women are coming in very strong. They feel as if you hear the phrase, I don't need a man, and I can handle business. I got the bag. I got all that and all that. So you have those phrases and you see that strong competition happening. And on the back of that, you have therapists saying that or you can share your feelings. You can really become, you become soft and become more open. And even the women who are usually like that, who we knew our mothers to be like that, today's woman is almost not like that anymore. Is there a place for such a man in our time?
I'm
Talking about
laughing.
the alpha female there.
Yeah, I look. We're going to go into another direction with this.
Correct. Yeah, I think Calvin
Yeah,
wanted to
we're
talk.
going to go into another direction with it, but
But
it's a valid
sorry,
question.
Prof.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes, but I think that the question Mr. Greg raised is a very important one.
Absolutely.
Not to focus on the alpha female or the not alpha female, but I think I was sharing recently with a group of nurses at FMC Ebutimeta here in Lagos, and we are now in a world where, okay, so in my study of behaviors and why people behave the way they behave, I think we found ourselves in a situation where it's been presented that the reason why you want a woman in your life is to show your dominance as a man, is to show that you can also have a woman under your belt. And also because you hear men at offices say to women, I have a woman like you at home, and so you should respect me. You should regard me just because I'm a husband to a woman there. But I also think that for so long a time, the need to assert authority has become a thing. But there's a place for every man at any point in time. There's a serious case of lack of trust across the world. If I tell you this thing, you've promised that you will not use it against me. But once we have any issue, that's the first you bring out. So that's how you did so and so. And social media isn't helping matters as well. I mean, Twitter yesterday was something else. I tell people that yes, everybody wants an outlet, wants a place to vent, but then you need to ask yourself, this place where I'm going to vent, if the books are opened in 10 years' time, would I be glad to say yes, I said those things? Just before I leave that conversation, recently I had someone reach out to me, one of my friends reached out to me in Abuja, and she had a number of issues, and I asked the psychologist working with me to attend to her, and then she filled the assessment and everything. And you realize that when people find an outlet to let things off, there's so much that they want to say. And I think that's a question that Mr. Greg is asking. Can men really come out these days to say how they feel? I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and stress in 2021. And for the first time I told anybody who cared to listen, they didn't take me serious. They were like, oh, I mean, some went as far as saying, all you need is good sex, you'll be fine. How can you as a practitioner be experiencing this? But I think that it's important that people know that there are professionals all across the globe, be it virtual or walking into the offices, to talk. I found help. I was out of circulation for about 4 months, but I found help, and people just need to understand that it's not the end, of it. You just need to find that trained person that you can speak with, to take you through the journey. And like I always say, that we all cannot be therapists, psychologists, or psychiatrists, but we owe it to ourselves as individuals to at least have some form of mental health first aid or psychological first aid, so that when people around you are experiencing this, at least able to provide some immediate form of succor to them before you're able to link them up with professionals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful. Yes, the question Jude Craig asked, that look, that's pertinent. Somebody said it's a huge and sensitive topic for men, especially African men. I think it's a whole bunch of men, not just African, but yeah, good to see we're addressing this on the platform. Now, I want Dr. Bonds to jump in here. Before you do, I just want to say to add something to the body of knowledge here. And so we have to define what strong means.
True.
I think we have to define that, because If we don't, we're going to have this misconception of strength that is not really valid.
Yes.
The fact that you don't cry, the fact that you don't show emotions, the fact that you don't do that does not make you a strong person. The fact that you don't know how to have a relationship with someone with a give and take, where this person is able to have compassion and empathy. I want to do away with all that submission and all that stuff, because that really it's a word that triggers people. So let's put it aside. The fact that you can have compassion and empathy and be able to hear somebody else's point of view, all of that doesn't make you strong. A lot of these things are trauma responses. That's what they are. They show up in our character. So I'll give you an example, and I don't want. I'm going to give you four personalities for traumas. All right, 4 trauma personalities. And if you're a guy listening to me today, check yourself with those personalities, or even if you're a woman. All right. Okay, so if you've heard of the fight or flight, right? You've heard of the fight or flight. Okay, so the fight is a person that comes and punches, the aggressor, right? So if you develop, based on all the traumas you've had in your life, you might develop we might develop what is called a fight personality. So that person is going to become the bully. That person is going to become the aggressor. That person is the one that will give it to you before you give it to them. If you're married to somebody like that, God help you. All right, either male or female, because before you attack, they've already attacked you. Before you said 12 words, they've said 20 words. You see what I'm saying? And then there is the flight personality. The flight personality is the person who decides that I am going to be so successful. I am going to build a world of success around me that nobody can touch me. So this person is going to get all the A's. They're going to become the presidents, the CEOs, the movers and the shakers of the world. And they're going to build this wall around them that nobody can penetrate. All right. And if you're married to somebody like that, they might be the one who is working 80 hours a week. They might be the one who is constantly doing this and constantly doing that, because they feel like, I don't want to see the pain of before. I'm going to build this wall. You see what I'm saying? Now, then you have the fawn personality, FAWN personality. The fawn personality is the one who does not want to deal with people. So they think people have hurt them, so they're going to not to deal with people. So that person, if you're married to, doesn't really want to spend too much time with you. They're going to be away. A lot of the times they're going to get a job in some underground place, right? And then the last one, this last one is a personality that we call them the pleasers. Okay, this personality, this is the one who has decided that in order for me to avoid pain, in order for me not to get the consequences of all the stuff that happened, I have to please daddy, I have to please mommy, I have to please this or that. I'm going to do everything. They have the savior's complex or the messiah complex. This is the person that will do everything. They're constantly doing, because they think that is the way to avoid pain, and that is the way to avoid tribulations and stuff. So these 4 personalities show up in marriages and show up in relationships. And a lot of the time, you think the problem is the other person. The other person is not the problem. The other person is what caused that person to have such a protective or want to protect themselves. Does this make sense? Why do they want to protect themselves? So instead of fighting each other, we need to look at the causalities, or we don't use the word causalities in social science. Well, we want to find the relationships that are there so that we can deal with those, if this makes sense in this conversation. All right, so that put there, Dr. Bonds, take it.
You spoke about the fight or flight. That fight, flight, or fright is in the lowest part of our brain called the amygdala. And a lot of times when things happen to us, we either fight, we flight, or we fright. We try to get out. And when we talk about trauma, we talk about things that has happened to us that has caused us to do that, and that's been passed down. That's been passed down. And so that being passed down, then you hear from back to your original questions. Then you hear, because as a man, you don't have time to talk, and you don't have time to cry. You fight for your family. You fight, or you work, or you die. And so that becomes the definition of a man. Be a man, don't cry. And then you talk about the emasculation of men, and then it comes to a point where there are gates to the soul. The gates to the soul are defined by what you see, what you hear, and what you say. And when you constantly hear those things and you constantly see those things, and those situations that you look at remind you of yours, then you begin to react as such. So I think and to your point, Doc, there's a spectrum. So when one says, be a man, don't cry, or be a man and don't do this, or be a man to accept this type of woman, put her in her place, do blah, blah, blah. First of all, when it comes to being the man of the house, you got people who are more assertive and more reserved in the way that they talk. And you got people who are more task oriented versus more people oriented. And sometimes a more reserved man would work better with a more assertive woman when it comes to certain things. But again, I think the whole thing about this manhood is, first of all, we have to be open. We got to know that everybody's not like us. And we got to know that it's not one definition that fits all. So just because I've had this experience growing up does not mean that everybody must be like that to quote unquote be a man.
Absolutely.
So it starts with being emotionally intelligent. The first area in that is self-awareness. And then knowing yourself, and then in knowing yourself, when you're in those certain situations and something happens and you want to react with that lowest part of your brain, you want to go all the way up to the neocortex. So you watch what's happening. You recognize, okay, this is a trauma situation. I can either handle it this way or that way. And then you react accordingly. And so that's not the easiest, because we haven't been provided a safe place to even talk about it or to even react in that manner. So I think and that's why it's so good to talk to people who understand, to talk to a counselor, and to also talk to people who have also gone through the same thing. And you synergize as men. What did you do? How do we do this? I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to lose my family, but this is all I know of how to react. So what did you do? And I think being around such a community where people are open-minded and understanding that everything does not evolve around how you was raised, because that goes into implicit bias. And we only got a few minutes left, but that's a whole nother topic of talking about implicit bias. So to your point, I think that hopefully having
we have time. We have time. It's not an hour show. You were good. You were living in an hour, but it's not an hour show.
Okay. Yeah. So to your point, I think that it starts with manlyhood starts with knowing yourself and understanding that the things that you may have gone through, and then being open to learning from a therapist, being open to learning from others' experiences, and being open to saying that just because I did something a certain way, that everything doesn't have to evolve around my way or no way. And again, that with this whole thing about women and how they were versus them being more masculine and things of that nature, a lot of times women are pushed into certain positions because my mother was 3 boys raised, and I don't know how she did it. But if she wasn't a certain way with us, I'm sure that I would probably be in jail today. I'm sure with the trauma that I experienced. But that just goes to show that, again, this is not a monolithic conversation. This is not a one-way conversation. It's so much to explore in masculinity. It's so much to explore in mental wellness as it relates to men. And it starts with being open, being emotional intelligent, knowing ourselves, and understanding and being open to others.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think we lost somebody. Who did we lose? Oh, Mr. Topsy. Yeah. The thing about thank you for sharing that. And I heard you when you said some women are put into the position where they have to be both. Exactly. However, let's not however, can we explore this community thing that you're talking about? As Jide, this is your question. When we're talking about communities, that there are different types of communities, right? But we're looking for healthy communities, because you can be in a community where everybody's saying everything, or women are this, so the women are boss women, they don't want to do this, or men are dogs, or this. When you're talking the same thing and feeding off of each other, nothing can help, right? So we have to have communities where we can actually bring in diversity of thoughts, and we have to have healthy communities, right? I'm all for healthy communities. Why am I saying this? Because I think that when we dig down to the very basic of mental health, before there was a mental health, or before there were mental health organizations and psychologists and stuff, people knew how to heal themselves, right? People were healing themselves. Of course, they were dying too, but they knew how to do it. So the basics of that were healthy communities, where the elderly will talk to the younger ones. This is how it happened during my day. These are the strategies I used. People who believed that, I can pass down experiences. We hardly have those anymore. Everybody makes their own decision from YouTube, from this, and from social media at this point. In fact, this generation called Gen Z are called the parentless generation. And the reason why they're called that is because they don't need you, in quotes. They get all of their information from the internet. All right. And we know how dangerous that can be, right? And so I think we need to start building communities that are healthy, bringing people into your space. So if you have a community where if you're listening to us today, if you're a group of men or women, and all you do is bash somebody, or say how horrible this other gender is and how this other gender doesn't do well, you are doing yourself a disservice. Everybody has where it hurts. Most people are reacting from their places of wounds. You understand? That's what it is. So that wife that was horrible to you, if they could do better, they would have done better. They could not. That husband that's horrible to you, if they could do better, they would have done better. They didn't know how to do better, because most people cannot examine their pain, and they can't examine all of the epigenetics that you brought into it, right? And so let's begin to heal our communities, whatever community you have, sister circle, men's circle, this circle. Let's make them open a little bit and bring some light in. That is my advice to people today. All right. Toluche, who wants to
please let Tokwe in. Tokwe is waiting to be let back in.
Excuse me?
Tokwe is waiting to be let back in.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to wrap up this particular question, but if anybody has a final thought for it, they can go ahead and do it before I round this up.
I think it's important that people embrace social support as much as possible. And when I say social support, so for lack of a better word, there is this thing that I coined that I call brothers in arms. So when I say brothers in arms is, I've experienced depression before, you've experienced depression before, okay, let's come together and form a support group so that we can strengthen one another. That's one aspect of it, right? But that also has a tendency of you getting lost in it, or trying to become the carer to the other person, and then you can get overwhelmed, right? But I'm even talking about the social support in which you have the group of people that that they've got you anytime tea. It's not because they are experiencing down times, right? But they are there for you. It could be social gatherings, it could be a group of people that you met randomly, maybe off a beach trip or while waiting for the bus somewhere, and all of that. Because in the end, we're human beings. And I mean, I often tell people that the fabrics of our skin is woven in the way that we are social beings. We are built to interact. We are built to socialize. We're not created to isolate ourselves. And so it's important to know that it can't exist in a vacuum. If we're made to isolate, then we'll be living on the mountain tops all by ourselves, right? And then you won't have community, you won't have streets, you won't have houses marked into provinces and things like that. So let's embrace what we have. The world is becoming very digital these days that you don't even know your next door neighbor, right? I could be chatting with your next door neighbor on social media, yet you don't know that that's your next door neighbor. So people need to step out of the tech space a bit and engage physically. There's a way it makes you feel alive again and makes you seen and makes you feel heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Ayo talked about, because I wanted them people to go away with tangible things. So now we've talked about communities. We've talked about building healthy communities. Ayo talked about exercise, right? Now, Ayo, there's a lot of men who exercise and a lot of men who don't, right? Can you tell us what are some of the benefits and if you can also just drop in some examples of ways that people can exercise, because exercising, activates all those endorphins, all of the good ones are activated and they're good for you. There's a reason why low levels of serotonin levels is high levels of depression. So if we can get some things going there, that might actually help all of us. So Ayo, tell us, because I know you are very active in your runs and biking and things that you do. So tell us a little bit, tell the audience, men listening, what they can do. And please talk from a basis of the experienced person and someone who is just starting out, who doesn't have an exercise regimen.
Thanks. Yeah. So there are two things. So you talked about what I would call the sciencey bits. The impact of exercise and all the chemicals and hormones going on in your body. But because this is about the mind and all, there's also something. There's just something about you stepping out, telling yourself, "I'm going to walk 5 kilometers," or going to run 10 kilometers, or that actually you get a good feeling from. I know obviously ultimately there is all the chemical rewards that you get on the inside, but just the fact that you set yourself a target and you achieve it in itself helps. So for me, the thing is, when I try to encourage guys and I say, look, it's not about, sometimes I understand people don't listen to me because yeah, but you do this all the time. But I didn't start off running 20 kilometers or 40 kilometers. It's not like I woke up one day and thought that's what I'll do. I kind of just, actually, I started running and that was just what it was. I actually started from the opposite side, maybe to address what most people go to the gym because they want to lose weight. I was the opposite. I was like super skinny and I kind of thought, it'd be nice to be a bit big and all that. So that's how I started. But that in itself helps me, just the fact that, okay, call it vanity or whatever it is, but it's nice when I, take my shirt off in the bathroom and I think, okay, you don't look so bad. That means I leave the house in a right frame of mind. So, so even apart from, like I say, all the chemical stuff, there is just that bit. And the thing is, I say, set yourself little targets. So, I'm going to walk 10 minutes because it's the fact that you do it and that puts you in the right frame of mind to, then you do it again and you get to repeat that. So there is that. I mean, and then don't tell yourself that I'm going to go out and I'm going to go and run 25 kilometers because you won't. I remember I was in a men's group once. I think Tuck was also in that group. And we started, let's start with 100 press ups a day. And I don't know, I think in the end, a lot of people gave up. But that's because then I thought to myself, maybe that was too much. But then it was over a day. And I kind of thought, well, if you started with 5 press ups, you should be able to do it over, 24 hours. But then again, that's assuming most guys can even do 5 press ups. But I think start small, but so that you can reward yourself, achieve it, and then you get some just as a positive feeling you get from that, which I know is obviously linked to the reward systems that goes in the body. But it's also just that very clear, I achieved something today, and then increase on that, and then you would find that it gets, for want of a better word, addictive. I could go on and on about the benefits of exercise. In fact, sometimes I even wonder, as a scientist, I question if these things are true, because it's almost like when I see a list of anything that's wrong with you, I'm expecting, and the things you can do to fix it, I kind of expect to see exercise in that list somewhere along the line, because it's, and you're thinking, yeah, right, I knew exercise would come into it. I'm not complaining about it, but I just think what I say to people is just start, and don't be a man in the sense of I'm going to go and run 10 kilometers, because that's what you expected to be nice and strong. Just start somewhere and go on. Yeah, I'm not sure
Would
if
you
that answers your question.
would you encourage people to get a coach? I mean, or a trainer or something, because having somebody there who who is helping you out at the onset of it, because if they could just do it, they would have already done it. There's something that's not allowing them to do it, right? I remember when I started, I had a coach, and running my first mile, I thought I was going to die, literally going to die. I diagnosed myself with all kinds of things. I thought I had athletic induced asthma. I thought, I mean, I was a mess. I thought my lungs were crashing and all of that. But I had somebody next to me who was saying, you can do it. It's okay. Take a break. All of that. So, well, what are your thoughts on getting somebody?
You're right. It certainly helps, because I think that at least it's nice to have. If you don't have what you might call the discipline, then it's nice to have that. It certainly helps. I mean, I was in Denmark for the last 4 years, and in Denmark, a lot of running clubs. I kind of like running because it clears my mind and stuff. But there's something good when you're running with a group of people. There is that motivation. You tell yourself, okay, we're going to run 5 kilometers. You don't want to be the only person who doesn't do it, and we would normally stop and help. So that helps. And also with having a coach, certainly like when you go into a gym, if you've never been in the gym, the first time you step in it, I mean, it looks very intimidating. You see all these machines, it looks like you're in some sort of torture chamber, and so it's nice to have someone help you, and also the fact that if you have a coach, the coach can probably help you go along. The first time ever I stepped into a gym, I saw all these guys, without a vest on, and they, so heavily musculated, and I would go in in fact, I used to wear like a sweatshirt, and I would wait till I get in the shower before I took off my shirts, because and it's just a thing. And so these guys are like this out big this way, and they're going, oh, that looks too little and stuff. And I'm thinking, God, if I had a tenth of that, I would be walking virtually naked the whole of this town. But it was part of just a show off thing. But having a coach to say to you, look, ignore that. You have a target. He gives you a program, and you work with that. Certainly helps. So yeah, if you can, definitely it's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Yes,
Another
please.
question. I mean, amongst all of us here, I'm probably the most endowed, the most slightly more better fed out of all of us here. So I would say, for lack of a better, I would say, let me ask a question. There's that one thing that I call it the umph, and I did talk with Tokwe about this many years ago. I said there's something called triumph, but there's that umph in triumph that seems to die, and it comes with depression. And the ability to say, I want to even get up to help myself is not there. So there's a way of you can prescribe a medication for someone who doesn't see the reason for leaving. All right, when they've been so battered and bruised, and you see people like Ayo, you look at them and they're telling you that they've run 10,000 kilometers just before breakfast. You're like, yeah, right. Let thunder strike him, and so we're back on the same level. But the question I'm asking is this: when someone is down and flat out, how do you get them up? We've talked about communities, and these are important, but sometimes getting them to even be in that community is a bit of a challenge and a bit of a struggle. How do you, what words would you tell somebody who is really down flat out? I know a friend of ours went into isolation and just died, alone, lonely there, and people they were talking to him, but the words were not getting through. Before people get to that point, what are the things that can be done before you can say, okay, let's even begin to attend the gym once a week, or let's begin to talk once a week? What are the things that can be done to bring men out of that state before we can now start experiencing the benefits of exercise and all that?
Well, talk about or Tolisha, you want to start with this, and then we'll we'll take it from there.
Okay, so I think that like I mentioned earlier, men need to support men. Men need to encourage men. Men need to come together, not just for the purpose of just sitting down to gist, but also inquire about the health and well-being of their fellow men. Because I mean, it's, whether we like it or not, one of the women tend to have one of these strong relationships where if one of Prof's friend calls her down to say, "Hey, I'm having some serious headache at the moment," she won't just say, "Oh, sorry, the headache would go." I mean, that tendency is that I should continue to check up on her until she can confidently say, "Okay, I can go to bed now. This person can sleep." But the natural tendency of a man is to yeah, how far this headache? What have you now used? Oh, this paracetamol. Sorry, all will be well. Hope it's not money that is troubling you, and all of that, and then you go off until next morning. That sense of care, that sense of we should not wait for the female gender to show us love and care. Men need to show love and care to one another. Secondly, is we need to form. I mean, so there is this thing about mutual consent, right, and mutual behaviors, if I can use that word. So, for example, so Greg was talking about running. Can you come together as a group to say, you know what, let's just have fun. I mean, so for those of us who have lived in some parts of Lagos, we see that on Saturdays, men come out and they're playing football. Some play like twice a week, and through that, you foster new relationships. So if you get to a place like that and you not see a particular person who comes there to play football, you'll be forced to find out about that person. Like, where is this person? This person is not here today. And then you find out. So I said to people that, look, don't just be comfortable with you go to work, you come home, you go to your place of worship, you come home, join meaningful social gatherings, join meaningful health communities, right? That would encourage you to live a healthy life. And they are all there. You just need to find it. It's not enough that all the kind of groups that you are in, or the kind of network that you are trying to build are those who invite you to hang out or discuss money, how to improve your net worth and all. It's also important that as you're improving this network, look for that group that encourages healthy living, good well-being, and good insight. Because exercises, or whatever name you want to call it, has a way of boosting your morale. Imagine you go to the gym with another friend, and while you're struggling to lift 5 kg, you see that person lift 5 kg. You're like, how did you do it? And then there's a likelihood that gives you some motivation that the next time you're like, okay, if this person could do it, I could do it. So I think that it starts with us encouraging one another to step out of our comfort zone, wake up that morning, avoid that laziness. It's not easy. It's not easy because there's a tendency for you to feel like, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that, but it has to be, it is doable, right? If you really want to do so, it's not about being easy. It's about, is it doable?
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
can I just say, sorry, can I say something?
Yes.
I think just to continue along the same lines, I think the first thing before I get to answering Jide's question there was I want to encourage people out there, men out there, and women equally, not to wait until something goes wrong before you start to put things into place. You can go see a therapist literally just to explore possible trauma, so that, because sometimes, events wake certain things up in you, wake up the trauma. So don't wait until you get there before you start looking for strategies. That's the first thing I want to say. Now, in trying to answer Jide's question, and I say trying for a purpose, there's no one size fits all. Yes. So just in case you were looking for, oh, this is the fix. No, it's going to be different for everyone. I think one of the key things that I have found working with people, who might be suffering some level of depression is making yourself accountable to something or someone. you know. And if you are going the professional route, then of course, you're a therapist. And that's why we see you every week. So that consistency is what matters. Again, that word, with just to link it to what I was saying, it's you don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to start doing 10 kilometers like Ayo. If all you can do is 100 meters, be consistent with it, baby steps. And that's how you grow in every aspect of one's life, to be fair. I mean, now I know we were talking about running, and that's the easiest thing to do, something you don't even need to spend a lot of money on. However, I don't like running. I just I don't, it's a thing for me. However, exercise is very, very important. And what I have done is found another way, something I can enjoy. So I play badminton 2 times a week for 3 hours. That's my thing. And I remember when I came to live in London, this is about 30 years ago. I was going to play badminton with my friends, and then they were just really inconsistent. And I really hate, I really hate inconsistent things or inconsistent people, and I, who don't respect time and stuff like that. After a while, I just said, no, I can't be doing this, with these people who don't seem to be serious. I joined a club. The club would always be there, and that's how I get my exercising. Now, I'll give you an example of something that happened again recently to me. So while playing badminton, I've sort of developed a wrist injury. I could roll over and play dead and just go like, well, okay, I can't play for a while. And I just, I've gone to register to swimming classes. Now I began swimming, So it has to be intentional, and you have to be militant with your health, and during the pandemic, I started to dance, it's as easy. Yes, I know you do Zumba, Dr. Moreno. It's as easy as putting on an app. It's so easy. I mean, in fact, we don't have, excuses. You can literally get on YouTube, find a dance class, get on YouTube, find an exercise class, and start slow. Just do 10 minutes, but be consistent with those 10 minutes, make it. I mean, if you're going to do 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, do that, and just be consistent with that. Don't go for the long haul and then you're struggling, after the first week. So those are the things that I feel you can put into place immediately, to improve your mental health.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly, just to add on to what the gentleman just said just now, we gotta figure out how best to affirm people too, because certain ways in which we affirm people work for certain people, but in certain ways do not. So, just for an example, some people love that group motivation and they work well for that, but for some people, it can give them anxiety, and they would prefer to just have a guide cut on YouTube and do so. So again, in finding out what works for people, it's all customizable. It's customizable. What motivates you on an individual basis? And if it's that group thing and having that, then great. Even with the trainer situation, I remember having a trainer, but my schedule, because I don't work a 9 to 5, so my schedule, I would have to come in. Sometimes it would work better for me to work out at 11 at night as opposed to 7 in the morning or 8 in the morning. And sometimes when you don't show up, then that there becomes that pressure and those generalizations. Oh, this person is lazy. Oh, this person is gone. Or this person is this or that. When you don't know the situation.
Good word.
And so those assumptions can be made if we generalize and say, well, this will work for everybody. But if you customize and say, well, what motivates you? And it, like you said, it may not be running. It may be swimming. It may be doing those things.
Absolutely.
Finding that out and building on that is so key.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to 1:30 my time, so we have 7 minutes left. Thank you, everyone, for everything that you have said. I do want to address how do we triage a crisis. Jide, how do you triage a crisis? Because you said somebody who really is down and how do we do that? A lot of the things that you're hearing for someone who is morbidly depressed or anxious, they might just be shut up in their room and they can't do any of those things that we've talked about. First thing, Jide, they need to learn how to breathe. Anytime you're in trauma zones, your brain does the breathing for you. You're not breathing properly. So the first thing anybody is listening to me is, and you can Google it, you can do all kinds of belly breathing or box breathing. My favorite is you inhale, and we can all try it now. Let's just inhale for 5 seconds, hold it for 6, and exhale through your mouth like you're blowing into a straw for 8 seconds. All right. So you're going to inhale for 5 seconds. You're going to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it for 6. You're not going to die. If you have a medical problem, don't do it. And then you're going to exhale like you're blowing into a balloon or a straw for 8 seconds. Let's all practice that right now. The power is in the exhaling. Let out all the breath that you have. So teach them how to breathe, that person. They can do that on their bed. They can do that. Let them learn to breathe properly. Google the types of breathing. There are apps for it. I have an app on my phone that tells me it's time to breathe now. There are all kinds of things. Do that. Then the other little thing is when you are in the throes of mental disorders, you don't drink enough water. So have them drink water. We should all be drinking at least 2 liters of water a day. Okay, now give or take depending on you, but you should be drinking plenty of water. What does that have to do? We all know that water is good for your medical health, for your physical body, but most people don't know that water is also good in the creation of those chemicals in your brain. So when you don't have water, it doesn't work properly. So you need to drink so that things can work out properly. So let them learn how to breathe. Let them learn how to drink some water, and then just do some tapping. And I'm not going to teach you all the basics of tapping. Let's just say tapping in any form. Like tap different parts of your body because trauma is stored in the body, right? And the tapping is to dislodge them. All right. And so they can do those little things. Just those simple things can be done and they will work miracles. In fact, 50% of the cure is learning how to breathe properly. All right. So learn how to do that. And for those of you listening to me, if you can just practice those simple 3 things, and of course, then you do the exercise that we've talked about. If you can walk, if you can run, walk. If you can walk, crawl. If you can crawl, scoot. There's exercise you can just do on your chair. You can, there are people who can dance, you can move your body on your chair. I used to run and then my knee gave out. It didn't give out, but it got, whatever, messed up. And then I started walking and then I thought, look, what do I love doing? I love to dance. Let's do that as an exercise. Find something that you love. Don't subscribe to any prescribed, this is the way it needs to be done. You find out what works for you and do it, right? That's how we're going to do this. I want to thank all of you. Oh, and before I do that, I'm going to go around and give everybody just 1 minute to just last words. And if you don't have any last words, it's okay too. We won't hold it against you. We'll start from Dr. Bonds.
Find your happy place. Find your community. Find your safe place. And if it's not adding to your life, it's more than likely taken away from your life. And so you do what makes you happy. And sometimes that's going outside of the norm. And don't just accept the one side of doing things. Life is a spectrum in so many different ways. And so that's one. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Julie Craig?
I'd say that mental health is real and it should not be stigmatized, especially in men. Trauma is real. I didn't think I had trauma anyway. I mean, I was good. I was looking good. I'm the funniest person in the room. Yet I had trauma. And thankfully, like I learned from Tokwe Abulude, open your mouth and begin to speak. It's extremely important not to bottle it in. I've even heard that when people bottle stuff in, it can lead to diseases and different things in the body. Trauma is real. Open up to somebody, talk to somebody, don't be afraid. Forget about reputation. Health is more important.
Woo-hoo. Thank you. Mr. Ayo Ogunsolu.
Yeah, I would just say that I just wanted to answer one very quick question that Jide asked about. Would you be accepted if you don't do those non-manly things? It's probably fair to say it hasn't affected my career. So I would say do your non-manly things because you will be accepted. My latest job, I spoke to my boss, she's female, and I said, just so you know, I'm not one of those kind of guys. And she said, no, I'm glad that you're not. So you'll be surprised that people will be open to that because I have a reaction which I don't like, which is I cry when I'm angry, which is weird. So I said to her, if I'm crying, it's not because I don't need hugs or whatever. I'm just really angry. And she said, you're not used to the cry thing. She said, no, I'm glad. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it hasn't affected my career. Like we talked about, I do have a relatively stressful job, but no one has said, oh no, we're not going to take him because he's going to come here and sub buckets. So be yourself, it won't affect you.
Thank you. Mr. Toluche, the mentalist.
You are the most important person in the whole equation. Look out for yourself, first of all. Look out for the person next to you, and then realize that it takes a community, right, to stay present. And what that really means is if you're fine and the person next door is not fine, at some point it's going to rub off on you. So you cannot just care only about yourself, care about those around you, but start by caring for yourself first. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. All
right.
right.
I'm just gonna say, look out for each other. That friend that's not called you, don't just assume they've fallen out with you. Ask, check in with them. And it's very important to develop a sense of self-awareness yourself, and get someone to help you to do that. The mind and body, they're interconnected, and your physical health would impact your mental health and vice versa. So just be aware. If you do the physical one well, you will be mentally healthy as well. So, yeah.
Thank
I'm gonna leave it there.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much, everyone. And honestly, we should do this more than once a year. We need to kind of do it more than once, and we'll probably commit to that. We so appreciate you at JARS. Thank you for at Akin Marino Network. Thank you for being just so open today. Thank you for sharing from your own experiences and for adding to the body of knowledge in the room. We've had different people contact us and said they were enjoying this, and of course it's also posted everywhere. It's going to be on every social media forum that we belong to. And till we meet again, thank you. Now,
have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
now,
all.
please hold on. We're not ending the show yet. Hold on.
Okay.